Yesterday, I received an audit letter from the California Department of Real Estate that's auditing a particular transaction. And in this video, I will show you what that letter looks like, what the Department of Real Estate is going to ask for from you so that you can be more compliant, so that you can have a proper checklist to make sure that your transaction is complete and in compliance should you ever receive a letter like this. Now, the Department of Real Estate will call this an inquiry, but it's effectively an audit because they're auditing a file, they're auditing all your paperwork. And I've dealt with this several times over the years because in the course of doing business, especially if you're doing volume over a long period of time, you will get letters like this, you will get an audit. I've had at least 2 in-person audits over the years from the Department of Real Estate and multiple inquiries like this where we're giving them information or I'm putting several transactions on a flash drive and delivering it to them. So in this case, they're asking for information on one transaction. And it doesn't matter how squeaky clean you do business because I'm extremely compliance oriented. It's just that in the course of business, someone may lodge a complaint and the complaint could be entirely unfounded. And if you have a salesperson on your team and a complaint's lodged, the Department of Real Estate has to investigate it. So I think it's totally reasonable. I understand entirely. I've no issue whatsoever with it. It's a bit cumbersome sometimes putting all the information together, but hey, they need to do their investigation. Now, there was a time with the Department of Real Estate where they requested information on a transaction like this. And when we furnished the information and they found no issue with it, they started requesting random files from multiple agents in multiple geographic areas. And I was scratching my head wondering, well, what is it? I mean, this started with one agent. Now you're asking about information from multiple agents in different counties even. I mean, what's going on here? Is there some sort of problem? And I mean, this went on for months. And finally, I ended up asking, I mean, what is the common thread here? What is the cause of all this? I mean, I get it if you're just auditing one file. They said that they were literally going through Zillow and pulling up random transactions from my brokerage and requesting them. Well, of course, all the files were compliant and everything checked out and the audit closed. And there was no issue. There was no violation found against the original agent in which the complaint was lodged that triggered this long-term audit. But I mean, that was the most tedious. I've had in-person audits with the Department of Real Estate, and they've been very pleasant and straightforward. If you're compliant, you have nothing to worry about. That's the bottom line here. So without further ado, let me jump into it. So I've redacted some of the sensitive information, but it makes absolutely no difference in terms of the content of this because you're going to see they're going to have just kind of this preamble and that they're identifying a transaction that took place with a certain salesperson. Okay, so we know the transaction with this salesperson. They reference the code. Now here's where they begin asking for stuff. So I'm going to just read through this quickly. They ask for the complete listing file transaction for the subject property, sale transaction file. So given that it was a listing, I imagine they want to see all the listing, like listing agreement, and everything that stems from a closed transaction. So a complete file, your entire complete file. Complete loan transaction file. We don't do mortgages in this office, so this might just be kind of a blanket template that they put on every letter when they do a single file inquiry. Complete escrow transaction file. So we do have escrow documents. We keep a copy of escrow instructions, earnest money deposit, receipt, things like that. So that, of course, is going to be part of our closed file transaction. Then they ask about lease transaction. So there may have been a seller in possession. There may have been a lease that took place prior to or after. We don't know. We have to go through the file. I mean, I do know. I'm just saying that this is probably blanket, but there are cases when there is a lease component. And if there is, you have to include that. Property management as well. They're asking for that. We don't do property management, which makes me think this is kind of a generic template. But what they're doing is they're asking for everything. But there's something I want to point out on the next page, because when I say everything, I mean everything. And this is where agents, I think, get in trouble. So trust fund log, we don't have a broker trust fund. That's how brokers get in big trouble. I used to own an escrow company. I know how much work goes into properly maintaining and reconciling a trust fund. So That is a huge responsibility and a huge headache. We don't have a trust fund, but some brokerages do. And the DRE definitely wants to see your reconciliation to make sure that no funds were misappropriated, because that's a common way of non-compliant real estate brokerages getting in trouble. But they want to see the broker salesperson agreement, your company independent contractor agreement. They want to see copies of commission checks, front and back, payable to the brokerage and to the licensee. So they want to see the salesperson contract between the brokerage and the licensee right there, between licensee name that's been redacted with these X's and the company, commission checks payable to everyone, MLS printouts, which we already have as part of our file. They want to see any advertising material for both the listing and sale and leasing. I think they're just saying for any real estate activity you did. So there's covering all bases: listing, sale, leasing, whatever. Anything you did in any capacity, any advertising materials they want to see. They want current contact information for all parties: buyer, seller, tenant. Okay. And then it adds on. They're concerned about the following issues. Now, here is the clincher. So this is why I'm totally against text messages. And I know that this makes me sound, how you want to describe it, old school or lame or whatever, but I am just so against texting. When agents text me about transactions, I don't even answer them. I bring it over to email, and I can answer it in writing an email, and I'm happy to furnish the Department of Real Estate, or in the case of a subpoena to the court, transcripts of all my emails. I have nothing to hide, but I'm not going to flippantly text. Here's why. They're asking for all communication surrounding all parties involved with the transaction, whether it's text or social media applications and or emails. Basically, if you're on a website doing a chat, if you're texting is the one that I think is the most important, because I know agents are texting all the time, which I think is totally insane. And I've done rants in other videos about texting and how agents should not be texting, because you're negotiating a $1 million asset. Is it appropriate to be texting terms about it? No. Is it appropriate to text that you're running 5 minutes late to a showing? Yes, that makes sense. Hey, running 5 minutes behind. Hey, traffic's bad. That makes sense. Negotiating terms through text messages is extremely unprofessional in my opinion. But it's not just about me having a personal opinion that it's unprofessional. It's also going to be brought in any sort of audit or inquiry or court hearing. I got subpoenaed. This was I don't know, a year or two ago. I got a subpoena, and I had to give a sworn deposition on this Zoom call with there were 8 people on there. A bunch of attorneys. These were people that had the resources to hire a bunch of high-end attorneys. So I'm on this Zoom call for hours. I want to say it was 4 hours. It was something crazy, where I was deposed as a broker on a transaction. I had every text message subpoenaed by the court. I had to go through every text message. Do you want to do that? Most people don't. So don't put sensitive information in text messages. And one last point, and I'll end my rant again about text messages. People text impulsively, flippantly. And that is not how you should compose yourself as a professional. If I get an email that has a shock value, I let it sit in, I let the shock wear off, and I don't impulsively write something back or get nasty. What I'm saying is, don't be impulsive, collect yourself, and write a professional response that you expect for a court or a State Department to review, and it'll make perfect sense. Okay, now it's asking for an explanation surrounding notifications to new tenants, and ownership to sale. And so this could come up. I know that there is a lease component in this particular sale. So now we'll have to write out a description. Now I'm typing a letter of explanation, as they call it in the lending world. Please provide an explanation surrounding any short-term lease agreements. Okay, now let's continue on my letter of explanation. So now I'm not just compiling documents, I'm compiling a narrative. I'm writing out a document. So I'm just showing you that this is what you can expect. And by the way, some of the nastiest things I've seen with litigation or whatever have been lodged against agents that did absolutely nothing wrong. And I have seen the most non-compliant, disorderly agents on, not in my brokerage, but outside brokerages where we've done business with them, and we're thinking that this person has no business conducting themselves as a professional, and they have gotten away with it. And escrow companies that are licensed by the Department of Real Estate doing non-compliant escrow, illegitimate escrows, I see that too, and they get away with it. So just letting you know. Then they want to add on here a complete written chronological version of the subject transaction with all pertinent facts. Again, you're sitting down, you're writing out a chronological order of events, all by 9/11, ironically. So, and then that's it. That's how it closes. So that's my homework assignment as a broker. Now, if you have a good broker, they're going to have a proper checklist and compliant files, and they're going to be able to create a well-written and orderly response that allows the special investigator to do proper research to determine if there was any wrongdoing by this licensee. And that's something that I will be able to do. And I've done it many times in the past, and I'll do it many times in the future, because this will just come up no matter what. Doesn't matter how compliant you are, this will come up if you do volume. And so you want to make sure that let this letter be a preview of your potential future. If your file is compliant, you have nothing to worry about. Just like with sellers, if you disclose everything that you know, you have nothing to worry about. It's when you cut corners, you conceal, you misrepresent, and you do something wrong. That's when you can get in trouble. So I hope you found this helpful and not too boring, but I did want to share it because this is just the reality of doing business and running a brokerage. And now you know. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment, and thank you for watching.